I'm looking forward to next year.
And welcome back to Pride London Network. My name is Stephen D'Amelio, president of Pride London Festival. What we wanted to do this year was try to showcase a lot of the amazing talent that our city has, and of course, showcase the history of Pride London Festival over the years. So, this year, we've decided to introduce something called our Legacy Interviews, where we talk with former presidents, vice presidents, and members of the organization. Today, I'm extremely excited to be sitting down with the one and only Chad Callander. Chad has served as both vice president and as festival director, and has also been part of this organization for a number of years. Chad currently serves as an executive director of another organization in this city. And today, I'm extremely proud to be sitting down and talking with him. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you for coming. This is obviously a long time coming. You know, you've been a part of the organization for a number of years, and I think it's really important that we have a chance to hear your story a little bit. But before we start, I wanted to kind of give an opportunity for people to know just a little bit about yourself. So would you mind just maybe reintroducing yourself and your pronouns?
Sure. So my name is Chad Callander, and I use the pronouns he, him, and his.
You had served on Pride London Festival for a number of years. When you were serving with Pride London Festival, what were you doing with Pride?
Yeah, so I actually started with Pride as the secretary, so I was just, kind of taking the minutes and helping out with the board of directors, and then I kind of moved into a director role. I served as vice president of the festival for about 4 years, and then the last 2 years I was the director of the parade.
Which is pretty intense, a lot of work.
Yes, it is no small feat, but as you know, we have great volunteers who are there to assist us with all the events that we run, and I kind of maybe get some of the credit because I'm the director, but I owe it all to a lot of those volunteers who did a lot of hard work.
And I think, that certainly is a theme that we've experienced over the years, is that this organization, along with a lot of others, is volunteer fueled. So it's incredibly helpful to see people like yourself being involved in that, and then other volunteers getting involved as well. Now, you're not part of Pride London Festival's the board of directors anymore. As you had mentioned, you've moved on, but you are now serving a pretty important role.
I'm proud to say that I'm the executive director of Meals on Wheels here in London. Amazing.
And so how has that been?
It's been a really incredible journey, particularly with the past couple of years with everything related to COVID. Our organization serves seniors, and seniors are often socially isolated, and with the pandemic, even more so. So just kind of seeing our community come together and support our organization throughout the pandemic has just been absolutely amazing. But also to be involved with an organization that's been in London for over 50 years. One of the stats I often like to share about Meals on Wheels is that since our inception in 1969, we've served over 2 million meals to the London community.
Wow.
So we consider that a huge milestone.
Absolutely.
But yeah, over the past couple of years, it's definitely been interesting, fun. When we were talking about volunteer-driven organization, like Meals on Wheels has hundreds of volunteers that we work with, for many years at a time. So it's been great.
And I'm curious, has there been something that's kind of stood out to you over the past few years being in that position with Meals on Wheels that's been kind of an aha moment, or a moment that was really stand out to you?
I think the aha moment for me, and for a lot of people, whether they volunteer or end up working at Meals on Wheels, is I think you don't realize the number of individuals out there that we serve.
Right.
And it's within the hundreds that we serve, and that number varies all the time. But, I think a lot of the times, particularly with services like that, those people are hidden, and you don't see them, so you often don't know they're there. And, after I started working at Meals on Wheels and started to realize, the depth that our community needed us, that's kind of was my aha moment of why we do what we do.
Exactly. And Meals on Wheels, as you mentioned, it's been here for 60 years, you said?
50, yeah.
50 years.
Yeah.
And, it's really important, as you said, that a lot of the assistance is going to individuals that are maybe not seen or heard. So it is extremely heartwarming to hear that you're still involved, not just in the community, but obviously there for people who may not have that voice or have that ability. And you're in a very important position, so they're very lucky to have you. And obviously with COVID, obviously everybody is going through mental, stress and whatnot. So I certainly applaud you for continuing to do that, and I hope that next year will be certainly a much more fun and positive scenario.
For sure.
Now, when you were serving on the board, that was back in, the last time you had served was, you said you had left just a couple of years ago. So when was the last time you had served on the board?
I believe I served from 2011 to about 2017.
2017. So quite a few number of years.
Yeah.
What are some of the differences that you've noticed within the LGBT community from your time serving, maybe back when you joined, to today?
I think there's a lot more of diverse voices, and I think that's because you're seeing a lot of people more comfortable speaking up. I'll be honest and say that there seems to be a lot more conflict, but I mean, conflict, I think often people look at that as like a bad thing, and I don't necessarily look at it as a bad thing. I think we're having more conversations about who our community is and what it is. And back when I first started back in 2011, it was kind of like, that movement was starting to get forward, but it seems like it's really picked up steam, and I think that's a good thing overall. Yeah,
and I mean, there's certainly, I know that we had served together for a period of time, and I know that Pride as a movement is always growing, so it's always good to have voices regardless of where they come from and what they're saying, as long as they're respectful.
Always, yes.
I think it's a good idea to have that involvement. Now, when you were involved with Pride London Festival, you had mentioned you had done quite a number of things, a number of different positions. I'm wondering, were there any organizations, whether it was when you were working with Pride or even outside of Pride, that really kind of made you go, this is the reason why? And obviously Meals on Wheels is important. But outside of Meals on Wheels, was there any other organization that you worked with while on Pride that you felt this was really important and this was something that made you want to maybe get into working more with Pride?
You know what? There's not one that stands out in particular, and the reason that I say that is because I would be afraid to say one and miss another one. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of is a testament to how far we've come, because I think when we first started with Pride, there was a certain amount of involvement, and that number just grew. And, having done the parade the last 3 or 4 years when I was on the board, the numbers just kept going up every single year. And I think by the end of it, we had about 120 to 130 different entries in our parade.
Yes.
And those were individual organizations or businesses that wanted to participate to show their support. And I think that just speaks volumes of how much our community kind of showed up. And that number always blew me away, the number of vendors, the diversity in the music that we had, the performers. It just seemed to get better, more diverse, larger every year. And not that numbers always speak volumes to how the success of the festival was, but I think it just showed that the support and the community was there for us.
Yeah, and I have to agree. I think that, we saw over the number of years an increase in not just the floats, but participation, so progress might be slow moving, but it certainly is good to see when you're a part of it. And I understand, not necessarily wanting to name just any one organization. While you were serving with on the Pride board, was there any moment that kind of stood out to you that was really important for you?
You know what? I think one of the biggest was the apology that we received from the mayor's office, not necessarily for myself, but for the proclamation about the parade. I kind of came onto Pride, and I actually did not know the history, and I did not know that the Pride Parade was banned. And when I heard that had happened, not only at all, but within my lifetime, it kind of, took me back a little bit.
Right.
So for the mayor at the time to issue that apology, I think was a big thing, and that, necessarily wasn't involved with Pride, but I know that we had a little part in it.
Yeah.
But I think also kind of, some of the things that stand out too, the rainbow crosswalks, I know that's somewhat symbolic, but I think that was kind of an important step forward. I think one of the bigger ones too was moving the festival into the park. I think that was a big thing because, before that it was kind of like we were segregated in our own little areas, and to move it into kind of central London to kind of be, a main festival just like all the other festivals was really important. But honestly, just experiencing the festival itself every single year, seeing the people enjoying it. I mean, one of my favorite things to do as a director was just to kind of go to the different events, sit back, and just watch people engage and enjoy it, whether it was an art museum, or sorry, an art exhibit, or whether it was a discussion panel. It was just nice to see the community come out and kind of have these conversations and celebrate our culture.
Absolutely, and I mean, it's I know being a part of it, and also just being somebody who was there. It's a different world, you know, to especially for somebody who might be coming out, right? So I think Pride and people like yourself are incredibly important because it's important for those individuals. So that's good to hear. That's you know, those moments stood out to you. Were there any surprises that kind of took you off guard, or were a little bit more shocking, maybe positive or negative, that took place while you were there?
I think honestly, you know, while it was minimal, you did receive some negative comments, and you know, I don't want to get into the specifics, but negative emails, you know, we'd get to our email addresses, or you know, letters we'd get in the mail, or people protesting outside of the park. I mean, those numbers are very small, and I'm very thankful for that. But I think it still shocked me that it kind of happened to some degree. Just comments that people would make by, you know, as we were doing certain events and things like that, or you know, you'd read the comment section back when they had the London Free Press comment section on the bottom, and you know, just people making things like that. It still shocked me that that was happening so much. But I mean, for the most part, I think, you know, that was probably the biggest surprise. I think the other thing too, you know, as a director, and anybody who's been a director for the festival will know how much time that it actually takes. I think that really took me back. Mm-hmm. You know, I expected a large commitment, but this entire organization is driven by volunteers, and it took a lot of time for people who are already working full-time jobs. So I think that was definitely one for sure.
And I think a lot of people who join a non-for-profit may be surprised to find out how much time is involved, and it's not just with Pride. You know, it's with just about any organization. But you know, I think, first of all, I think it's important that people like yourself and myself and others that are involved in this organization and have been involved in the past get an appreciation and understanding for that, but also have dedicated their amount of time. There's people I know that haven't been able to fulfill their full amount of time, and that just could be for personal or professional reasons. So every aspect is really important. Every voice is important. But it's interesting to hear that those were some of the surprises, that some of the comments, and that I've experienced that as well. I think a lot of people in the last year and a half have unfortunately experienced some negativity online. So we just want to, you know, I think, hopefully move out of that in the following years. You know, you had mentioned quite a few things that you've done while you were there, and starting out as secretary, moving into the vice president role, handling the festival, handling the parade, you know, moving it from, you know, I believe it was at Western Fairgrounds at one point, down back, because I think it was downtown at one point in time, and then moving it back downtown to a central area, having more people involved. So these were a lot of, you know, positive influences and things that happened. I guess one thing that I'm curious about is when you look back at some of those positives, and you look at some of the challenges that you also came up against, were there any challenges that you kind of came up against that you didn't feel like you were able to meet, or that you wanted to see more done on, or just any challenges that were just a bit surprising to you to come up against?
You know, I think there's a lot of like the standard challenges that you face when you're a festival, you know, with liquor licenses and liability and all those kinds of stuff. Those, you know, that didn't really, I guess, surprise me per se. But if I'm thinking about challenges in particular, I think it's just the organizing and bringing so many people together in so many different type of events. I think when I left it was about 10 days of 35 plus events.
Yes.
Logistics of that, the challenges of trying to make sure, you know, they had enough volunteers at that place or that place, and you know, there's bound to be things that go wrong, and there are always things that go wrong, and I guess one of the challenges,
because I agree that
accepting that,
you know,
accepting that it's a little bit
a lot of the things that I think, and it's important that I think, you know, people who are watching this understand fully that when you join a nonprofit organization, that there are challenges,
no matter
and there are hiccups that you might bump into. That's actually a good piece of advice for myself. is that chaos it does reign, and sometimes you don't have that control. And for people who maybe are a control freak, it can be stressful, very stressful. So, but it's good though that you felt that those challenges were met, and that you were able to meet those issues and find solutions for them. Um, I am wondering, when we look at Pride as it stands right now, I think a lot of people we're having conversations about, are we at a crossroads? And it's not just our organization. A lot of other Pride organizations across North America are having this similar conversation about, seeing where they move to. I'm curious, your experience on the board and obviously seeing some of the amazing progressive changes that we've had. Where do you see our organization going in the next 5 to 10 years in your own personal view?
It's tough because I think, Pride organizations across the country are struggling. I think the Pride movement in general is struggling. You're seeing, major LGBT landmarks that are disappearing because, people may argue that it's because, we're part of mainstream society now.
Right.
But I mean, it's also we need to celebrate that as part of our history. So I don't want to lose that.
Right.
Honestly, if I could tell you where I think we'd be in 5 to 10 years, I don't know, and that concerns me because I worry about the viability of Pride festivals going forward, and I wonder if there's a different direction that they could be heading in. But I'm kind of hoping that whether it's a festival or whether we're doing yearly events, that there continues to be some kind of Pride movement locally here in London and across the country. I think it's important, just like like cultures celebrate their festivals, we celebrate who we are and the different movements and as it's changing. So I wish I knew the answer, and I think if I knew the answer I might be a rich man because I could make some investments in certain areas, but it's just it's hard to say. But I think as we continue, as long as we continue to come together as a community, we'll figure it out. Because I think if there's one thing I've learned, particularly on being the board, is just the festival, Pride or not, has gone up and down years gone by, and I think it's constantly changing. And I think as long as we continue to come together, we'll find a way, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I think that's you mentioned the fact that a lot of other organizations are struggling. There are some other organizations that have shut down, for example, Boston Pride, Edmonton Pride. So I think from my perspective, and I'm kind of getting the feeling from your perspective as well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm happy to see that our organization is continuing. But I think that, as you said, that there's some discussions that are happening around the world with regards to how the movement looks and what the next steps are. And that kind of goes into our next question here, which is this is a very intriguing conversation that has been happening over the past 5-6 years, and I think is important to continue to have. But that's one surrounding police and the involvement and how they're viewed and what purpose they serve, but also surrounding issues regarding Black, Indigenous individuals, non-binary, intersex, transgender, individuals who have felt or have experienced prejudice and unique problems with various police forces and services. So with that being said, obviously this is a very unique time in our history. I'm curious where you feel Pride London should kind of be standing and whether or not these conversations should continue, or if maybe there's a time for a pause on some of these relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when this first kind of came up, and it was at one of our board meetings, and it's kind of hard to sit there and have that conversation when everybody at that time around the table was white and not experienced this. But, we had heard the conversations from our community. We had heard the advocacy they were making, and I hope, and when I look back at it, I think we made some of the right decisions. But I think ultimately the biggest thing is that we just keep having the conversation, and we keep, everybody kind of a part of that conversation, keeping the conversation open with the police, keeping the conversation open with our community members, and doing it in a respectful manner. I think that's kind of the most, important thing, and I think that's the kind of attitude our Pride took at the time, and I think we should continue to take into the future.
Yeah, and I think, it goes back to what you were saying about the idea of challenges will come up, but having that open discussion, having that open dialogue, I think is important. And that relates to just about anything that we as an organization do. So I think that's it's good advice. And I hesitate to say, but I'll say it, I think that that advice is probably appropriate for any organization. And having that dialogue with regards to race relations or the police. I do have one last question. So obviously there has been a lot of interest in Pride over the years from a number of different people trying to get involved from both committee level and board level. But from someone like yourself who's served for a number of years and has held a number of different positions, is there any piece of advice that you would provide to an individual who is interested in getting involved, whether on a committee or a board, or just being involved in general? And might not just be to Pride London, but it could be, for example, for Meals on Wheels or for any other non-for-profit. Would there be advice that you would give to them?
Yeah, I think for sure that one of the biggest things is to sit down with somebody who's done the role. I think that's a big thing. I mean, I didn't do that, and I think I would have maybe been more prepared for the commitment and time. I think that's probably one of the biggest things, or whether that's an employee of the organization, just so you can get an understanding of the commitment. I think sometimes people maybe underestimate or overestimate, particularly in getting involved with boards, how much of their time is actually involved, because there's a lot of nonprofit boards where your role is simply to show up for a meeting once a month and provide some advice, and that's it. Then Pride, which is, it's a volunteer-driven organization, so it's, you're looking at hours per week,
Yes.
no matter what time of the year that you're going to be you're going to have to give up. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, but also making sure that it's, something that you are interested in and you are passionate about. Like, I think often people just want to help, but I think you really want to, particularly in a volunteer role like that, you want something to drive you, something that's important to you, something that means something, so that you really want to get involved in the cause. I think that's probably the biggest thing, but also, and I think people often forget this, and I know it's going to seem kind of silly, but don't forget to have fun. Like, just because you're on a board and it's a nonprofit organization, and it is a serious role that you do need to take seriously, I think you should be able to enjoy yourself a little bit, no matter what the organization. And I would say that to any board at all, because you are going to go through some tough times as a board, but also remember to enjoy some of those times as well.
Those are two really good pieces of advice. The one thing I will say is the first piece of advice, I think the fact that you should have a passion for getting involved, and that'll definitely help kind of keep you motivated, I think is an exemplary to why you're involved with Meals on Wheels. And as you said, having fun. I know that this year, I don't know about you, but this year was probably pretty hard to have some fun.
Yeah.
But I agree that it's important. So those are two really good pieces of advice to people, whether it's for Pride or for any non-for-profit. But speaking about a passion, I said one last question. I lied, one more. Speaking about passion, obviously you're now, as I mentioned, involved with Meals on Wheels, and that is a passion of yours. And as you said, it's, seeing the successes of what you've been doing is really touching and continues to be motivated. What I'm interested in now is, what do we have to look forward to for Meals on Wheels coming into, post-COVID, not pre-COVID, post-COVID. What are you excited for in the new year?
I think, if I'm being honest, I think like most organizations, we're hoping that the worst of this has passed and we can be able to make some movement. If I'm speaking of Meals on Wheels specifically, we're currently in the process of engaging in our strategic plan and hoping to launch that in January. So I'm very excited about that, and I can't really share a lot of the details of that yet, but I will say that, we're looking to, like most organizations nowadays, really adapt our services to our current community need, but also to, potentially provide things that are for more culturally sensitive meals for our community, or, just hearing what they want to be able to provide as many services as we can. So
yeah.
I think that's what I'm excited for the new year, but also, like a lot of people, as I said, just to kind of move forward with this.
Yes.
And, I'm excited to see what happens with Pride, because I know Pride has been kind of on hold somewhat, because it's very much an in-person event. So
yes.
I'm very excited to see what you guys come up with.
Yes,
in the future,
absolutely.
So.
And one last thing, just for clarification, if people want to help get involved with Meals on Wheels, should they just reach out to you or reach out directly to the organization through the website? How would be the best way for them to be involved?
Our website is easy. It's mowl.ca, and you can find our contact information there. Or if somebody wants to reach out to me directly, I'm always happy to have a conversation about Meals on Wheels. I'm probably our biggest advocate, so I'm
hopefully
always happy to talk about it. So that way, or just give me a shout. I'm always happy to have a conversation.
Perfect. So Instagram or email or?
Yeah, just email me. I'm Callander, CCALLANDER @mowl.ca.
Perfect. We'll put that on the bottom so people can reach out to you as
Yeah.
well. And again, I'm really excited to see what Meals on Wheels is going to be doing in 2022 and beyond. I think we're all excited to see anything in person. So and I hope that number continues to climb. The 2 million continues to climb, and I love the idea that, as you said, you're looking at unique things to progress and make Meals on Wheels a bit more open to other cultures, and I think those are fantastic. So I'm excited to see what the strategic plan is and where Meals on Wheels is going moving forward. But that's it for this interview. So I really want to thank you. Obviously Pride London has had a very rich history, and you're a big part of it. So being involved in the organization and having a chance to sit down and talk with you is really important. And I'm glad that people who may not know you and may not know the history have had a chance to now learn a little bit about it. And I'm sure that you wouldn't mind if, I don't want to put it out there, but I'm sure that if people did want to reach out to you and just ask some of your opinions on certain things related to getting involved, that you might be able to help them out from time to time.
Absolutely, 100%. I would be more than happy to do that because, I mean, Pride will always have a special place in my heart, and obviously I was a board member and just involved with it for a number of years, and any way I can help, I'm glad to do it.
Amazing. Well, once again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Chad, for joining us once again.
Sure.
This has been the Legacy Interviews. Again, my name is Stephen D'Amelio, sitting with Chad Callander, former Vice President of Pride London Festival and current Executive Director of Meals on Wheels. Once again, if you would like to find out more ways to support Meals on Wheels, you're more than welcome to check out the website or email Chad directly. And if you'd like to get involved in Pride, you can check out our website at pridelondon.ca. This entire video is available online at pridelondonnetwork.com for free. And until the next time, please, again, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon.
Deep into my soul, they call us crazy, we cutting the edge, unlocking the future and letting it go. This is a calling that's higher, the time we decided our stories are gonna be told. This is where legends are born, we paving the road, a future that favors the bold. Break the rules, break the laws, this is the moment we change it all. Break the rules, break the laws, this is the moment we change it all. Yeah, greatness.